Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to week 2. We're going to start with a review first. I want to start with covering the basics again, just to help you understand, because that's how we're going to be drawing everything for this remaining semester, and then we'll get started with the new information. So let's do a quick review on the information we learned last week. On the side of tools, we have pipes and we have triangles. Remember that everything that we build is based upon pipes and triangles when we draw them out. So any point that we capture here, if we bring it up to scale, like this little fold along in here, we see first of all 2 different directions. And each of those directions disperses. The disbursement, in this case, the dispersion is tightening down. In many different cases, it actually flares out. That's the thicker materials. But in this case here, we tighten it down. One of these folds blends in with the other, and then the 2 of them together become one larger mass. So this is all one large pipe fold here, and these are 2 intersecting pipe folds right along in here. And we'll kind of do something like that so we can see the tension that we're building here. All right, and so in the interior of this, the misleading factor here in the way that I'm drawing this is that in this inner space between these 2 pipe folds, it actually goes back much farther. So there's a deeper crease between, and not actually right around in here, but back over in here, there's a deeper crease forming in between these 2 pipe folds. And then it settles into this body of material right along in here that's being stretched back and then pulled upward into the body. No less, the spaces in between the pipes are triangular, and the gathering of the material is in a pipe form, right? This is a continuous surface. This is a continuous surface, right? It keeps going and going. So that's the design of it. Between these 2 tools, we should be able to note all of these things with regards to how we draw them. The majority of the time, we are trying to design around something underneath. So if this cylinder is the leg, as an example, and our material sticks out like this on both sides, when we draw any sort of fold over the surface of it, what we're trying to do is embellish the lines of these pipes to make them feel as though they're drifting over the surface. This is what we always want to try and do, unless we're looking at a 2D flat world like South Park, as an example, or even Steven Universe to some extent. Some of the characters in that are very flat. And if that's the case, then you still build upon the same concepts of triangles and points of tension and gathering points and such, but everything now has more of a flatness to it because nothing here goes up and over in this respect or goes around in this respect. But that's for a completely different kind of design. The 3 different referenceable spaces that we are in search of, so that we can at least label them and understand what's going on. First, we have resting points. Anywhere the material is resting on the figure, all along in here, all up along here, these are all resting points. This is where the material is relaxed, but it also begins, in this case here, begins all of these different pipe folds that descend down the body. Tension points are like this right here. This is a tension point. And a tension point is different than a resting point in that it moves, and when it moves, all of the material moves along with it. Where along in here, when it's resting, what it's doing is it's gathering and it's draping across different objects. It does have direction because of the objects separated from one another, but it's not an active direction. It's not a direction that's designed out of motion and movement. This is a tension point, and this is designed out of motion and movement. So even the gathering points on the back side all have this kind of energy to them that move forward or move in the direction of the tension point. Gathering points, we have a couple of them in this picture, here and back along in here. If there's a tension point here, all of the material is going to gather on the back side. You can see there's no material gathered along in here because the form is sort of bursting out from underneath right? It's flattening out this space along in here. And all the material that should be out here is now displaced and it's placed in the back. The same was happening along the top of both thighs. All of the material that should be up along these resting areas is falling off with gravity, and gravity is dropping it down below. All of these folds that are dropping below are gathering down in here, and when they gather, they overlap each other, and that's where all of the crazy triangular interactions occur. Because this is all one piece of material, it's folding itself upon the different reference points of your woof and your warp, the different directional threads in your material. So these are the different tool sets that we work with. And then remember, again, going back to figure drawing, that if we begin with an armature, the armature is the basic skeleton of the human form, but a skeleton filled in, right? We're idealizing the skeleton by making it into bigger shapes rather than the arm being all these little knobs and sticks, rocks and sticks. We're actually making them into cylinder forms. And then if there is any advancing muscles that have their own profile or have a unique profile that we have to show off, let's just say, for example, if we're talking about Greek myths, we have a Hercules type character, or if we're talking modern myths, we have Superman. And if we put Superman in baggy clothes, he doesn't look like he's strong. That's Clark Kent. If we put him in his cape and costume, then his muscles are the idealization of the human form, like a Greek god, and those muscles show off strength and power within the human body. So they become very symbolic and important. And if these curves cannot be seen, then it doesn't help create or help inform that message. And that's why the baggy clothes over Clark Kent. We have to disguise that facade. Although we definitely know that underneath the suit that man wears, there is a larger body because the suit is quite filled. It doesn't quite show off all of the cut lines of the muscles and so forth. It keeps all of that somewhat disguised, although in today's cuts and clothing, not as easily done as it was once before. But that cylinder form now, and then the angles that we might place over the top of it that represent muscles, are the tension points or the points of rest for the materials that we're going to place over the body. And then once we know that the body is designed the way we need it to be, then we go around and we search for the very first lines we search for are the cross contour lines, the circles that we draw through the form that helps us go up, around, and over things. And those are in the collars, the cuffs, the belt line, places of that sort where we definitely know we'll see circles on the body. That's where we place the circles. And those are the end points of the material. Then we build the cylinders off of that. And let's say, for example, on the back of the arm, the elbow is beginning to stick out and the shoulder is a resting point. So that means that all the material, if it's falling, is going to gather in the front. So I'm going to give the front of the arm a little bit more mass than the back of the arm, and I'm going to let the material on the back of the arm rest against the tricep, the deltoid, and the elbow. I definitely want the back of the arm to show the mass of the interior of the body. And then on the front, if there's any folds to be found, those are going to go around the cylinder form of the arm to show off its dimensionality. If the body is leaned forward, the same thing happens here. The shirt gets drawn out in front of the entire torso first, and then against the torso in the back if the person's leaned forward. And then from there, we determine what's happening with the action of the arms. And the action of the arms does dictate how the body of the material is going to work. Let's say this arm is leaned outward or pulled away from the body like this. It's going to stretch the material down here at the armpit. This is a seam where there's stitching, and anywhere there's stitching, there's going to be tension as well. But also, this is where the arm cylinder separates from the torso cylinder. And the tension point between those two cylinders is such that it's going to cause a lot of disruption right along in here, as well as up along in here, where under here the arm is tightening up and stretching the material because the sleeve is short. Up here the sleeve is gathering above the deltoid, and it's going to start rolling over the shoulder here, but rolling over with intention because this arm is thrusting forward. So these lines are also going to be supporting the action, the direction that the arm is moving in. So these are the basics, and these basics, once we have things identified and we build the cylinder forms, the next thing we go into is the rendering mode. We're going to look at the rendering next week. This week we're just going to look at the wireframe and try and determine how to design it so that by next week we have no problem shading anything. We're also going to look at the 7 folds. We're going to break them down. This week we're going to look at 3 primary folds. Next week the 4 active folds. And what I mean by primary and active, you'll understand by the time we get done looking at everything here. But primary folds come from a lot of this Greek toga and loose material wear. Where basically we just take a piece of cloth and drape it over the top of us. And the interactions on the body are very primitive and simple. Where in modern clothing, where we have shirts and pants and such, we have a tightening around the body, and that calls for a different type of fold structure because of the activity of the body underneath. In both cases, the activity of the body is what determines the folds. But when the material is loose, like a drapery over the body, it behaves very differently, like a cape as well, than t-shirts, jeans, button-up shirts, track suits, running suits, ski outfits, and things like that, you know. So this is what we're going to do this week. We're going to look at the pipe folds, the diaper folds, and the drop folds. Next week, we're going to look at a bunch of other different folds that are a little more active and even less active in some extent with the inert fold. But we're going to look at these 3 particular folds first.